You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am joined by Detroit Beastie on a Sunday, and I guess while we're getting at that, I probably better get that thing rolling across the bottom. So we're not live today. We've had some unfortunate obligations. Things like that were not allowing us to be here live with you on this one. But you can hit us up with your start-sit questions. Send them over to the Twitter. He's at Detroit Beastie. I'm at Good Old Boys FF. We'll be glad to field any questions that you have and help you out with that. But Chris, how you doing today?
I'm great, and to be fair, I'm free as a bird. You're the one that had an obligation, so I'm here not under protest, but I'm here to kind of let's get the message out on Sunday.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm wondering if I got to start looking like that. That bus was coming pretty hard there, but I appreciate it. And he's absolutely right. I've got some obligations that I've got to attend to, and I'm not going to be able to be here on Sunday, but we wanted to make sure that we hit you up and got you some fantasy information to help you guys with your fantasy lineups here. And so since we're not going to be able to have the questions coming in, we're going to each kind of take a couple of games here, highlight some things that we think are going to be very pertinent here for the matchups, things like that, that'll help you out. And, kind of without further ado, Chris, I'm going to let you start that one off with your game that you're highlighting. And then we're also going to touch on some DFS plays throughout this episode as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving me the floor first here. And I want to go right to Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns host the Houston Texans, and Cleveland is giving Houston 13 points. The over-under in this one is about 48. If you look through the slate and the schedule, for Sunday and even the Monday night football game, this game is probably mid-tier in terms of the over-under. And I've made no secret about the fact when I, do anything fantasy-related, DFS, anything along those lines, I look at the over-under. I mean, if the game Thursday night's game, the over-under was only like 40 points and they smashed it in the second or third quarter here. So I pay a large stock into that. But without further ado, if you look at these two teams, right, on the Houston side of the ball, they were very surprising in week one. It was shocking to me. Tyrod Taylor was very effective, very efficient. In this week, they go to Cleveland. As I said, Cleveland is 31st overall against opposing quarterbacks here. I think Tyrod finds some more space this time around. Mark Ingram, what are we going to do with him? A lot of folks look to add him on waivers, and he was on a short list of waiver wire darlings headed into week two. I just don't see it. I think his best days are behind him. Nothing crazy. The only side of the Houston ball that I do want to highlight here is actually two guys, Brandon Cooks and Nico Collins. The rookie from Michigan, Nico, had a great game. He scored a touchdown, but it was called back due to a holding penalty, but it was a great grab, kind of a tippy toe kind of thing in the corner of the one end zone here. So if I'm going to do anything from a DFS standpoint, I'm going to stack all those three guys, and I think it could be fruitful in terms of low ownership. Give me Tyrod Taylor, give me Brandon Cooks, and give me Nico Collins. And another stack in terms of DFS formats and even seasonal formats, Baker Mayfield. What are we going to do with him? Baker Mayfield is playing the Houston Texans, as I said. Houston is 21st overall against opposing quarterbacks, but take that information with a grain of salt. It's only based on one game, which was kind of wild. They played Jacksonville in week one here. So I love the idea. If you have Baker Mayfield, obviously it's kind of a slippery slope. In two quarterback leagues, Superflex, you're going to start him. In a one quarterback league, depending on the format, you might not have to start Baker Mayfield, but I'm here to tell you now, start Baker Mayfield today on Sunday, because this is the Sunday broadcast, right? So give me Baker Mayfield in there. Nick Chubb goes without saying. I'm not going to waste people's time talking about Chubb. Outstanding. Houston's 11th overall against opposing running backs. The focal point here should be Kareem Hunt. Again, Houston is 11th overall opposing running backs here, but Kareem Hunt can do some damage. He did do some damage, and I know a lot of folks that have start-sit questions, and it's always player A or Kareem Hunt, player B or Kareem Hunt. I'm starting Kareem Hunt week in and week out until further notice. I do believe that Chubb and Hunt are the dynamic duo. They are one of the best running back combinations in the NFL here. And one other topic here, Jarvis Landry. Houston's 26th overall against opposing wide receivers, and it's already come out that Odell Beckham Jr. is not playing today. So look for Jarvis Landry to get a lot of run here. So in DFS formats, I love the four-headed monster of Baker, Chubb, Hunt, and Jarvis Landry. And more than likely on FanDuel or DraftKings, it might go underowned, underappreciated here. So give me the four-headed monster in Cleveland today, Derek.
I love it. A couple of questions on that one. So looking at it, like I love the Cleveland pick there, but are you at all concerned because of this? The spread on that game is, around 12 points on this one. And so this game could be one where the Browns have this thing, well in hand by halftime or so. So are you worried about some of the pass catching options and Cleveland maybe taking the air out the ball and just running the ball in the second half?
No, not necessarily, because you say, well, in the second half, are you going to be bummed out to play these guys because they're up so much? Well, how did they get up so much to begin with? So these same players are always in play, right? I understand it, but that's my vague stock wet blanket answer. Well, if they're going to kind of wind out the clock in the second half or the fourth quarter because they're up so much, are you bummed out? Well, they had to get that big of a lead to begin with. So no issues here. To be honest with you, Derek, I have Cleveland winning this game by about 10 points. So I would take Houston in the points, but I do have Cleveland winning about 34-24.
I love it. That's always a question that kind of comes up there from folks that maybe are a little bit worried about playing some of the pass catchers, things like that. So I wanted to get your take on that. And I agree with you that, if these guys are going to be sat in the second half or the game script is going to take them out of it a little bit, a couple of things had to have happened for that. One, the game script has to be that way. And in order for the game script to be that way, either the defense stepped up and made play after play after play and put them in such great field positions on every single drive during the first half that it was short yardage and easy touchdowns. But I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case because of everything that you talked about with Tyrod, giving you some of that safe floor and being able to move the ball a little bit and some of the rushing upside he has. And I like the Brandon Cook stack there as well. So a lot of really good advice coming out of this game, and I'm forward to seeing how this one plays out. One of the games that I was really, really interested in seeing and looking at is the Minnesota Vikings at the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, the over-under on that is 51.5 points. The Cardinals are favored by about 4.5 on this one. So it's a hometown deal with that. Minnesota was one that we talked last week, and I came out and declared that Minnesota's defense should be much improved, and they weren't. Like they did not look great. However, on the flip side, Arizona's offense looked very, very good. And so I see a couple of big things here, right? Like the DeAndre Hopkins, the Kyler Murray stack will be in play. If you've got them, get them going. They might be a little bit prohibitive from a DFS side of it, just with the budget there. But you can certainly add some other pieces in there. Christian Kirk looked really good and looked very involved in that offense last week. And he's also a guy that can be a one-touch type of player and just house one from just about anywhere on the field if you get him the ball in space. So very excited to see how that one looks and works. I think the Minnesota pass catchers are going to be involved in this game more so than what we saw, potentially last week. And I think you'll see bigger days out of both Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson there. Kirk Cousins, I think, will also have a pretty decent game to it. And Dalvin Cook, I don't necessarily see him having as great of a game just from the way that the game script is going to go, that I don't think he's going to get that 25 carries on the ground type of thing. It's going to be his work he'll still be good for fantasy, but his work is going to come more in the pass catching realm, just how I'm kind of seeing this one. So looking at it, I think this one's going to get the over on this one. I think the Cardinals are going to win, but I think it's going to be a field goal type of game. So I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a lot of back and forth in this one, and it's going to be a great game to watch. So I'm very interested to see how this one ultimately looks and plays out.
Yeah, I'm with you to a certain extent. I got Minnesota -3.5 all day. I think the final, they win by about 7 or 8 points here, 31-23, 31-24 here. And my biggest X factor in this game has to be Chase Edmonds, right? He's now the lead back in last week, 12 carries, 14 receptions. I see an almost identical stat line in week 2 for Chase, just with the addition of a touchdown. So you're looking at another 12 carries for 60 yards. You're looking at another 4 receptions for 40, maybe 50 yards, plus a touchdown here. So to me, Chase Edmonds is very much in play for seasonal formats and even in DFS circles. He's $6,000 on FanDuel, and Minnesota right now, they're 26th overall against opposing running backs. So to me, I don't think Arizona's offense in general is not sneaky at all. Kyler Murray is a stone cold stud, but I know a lot of folks that they just want to fade Chase Edmonds because he's not in your face flashy. But I'm telling you now, week 2, Chase Edmonds will break out in a big way with a great game on any and all formats here. So give me loads of Chase Edmonds in week 2.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of those too that, part of the reason I think a lot of folks aren't necessarily huge on the Chase Edmonds is because they're still slightly worried about James Conner there and what that looks like, because Cliff Kingsbury has traditionally, when you get down inside the red zone and inside that 5-yard line type of deal, loves to try and just run between the tackles on that one. And that's where James Conner really kind of will make his hay in this offense. And that's not really what Chase Edmonds' role is, but yeah, there's not many leagues out there that folks are still playing in that's a standard type of league. Most folks are playing in a half-point PPR or a full-point PPR, and Chase Edmonds will be the higher scoring back between these two. That's how I have it ranked as well.
Outstanding. Well, let's move the thing along here, and I want to go from, where were we? We were in Arizona. Minnesota in Arizona. Let's hop a flight and let's go to Indianapolis. The Colts host the Los Angeles Rams, the Stafford-led Studley Rams here. And to me, the over-under in this one is 47.5. And I have no issue saying I firmly believe this game is going to be one-sided from the get-go. Indianapolis, their defense, they've been one of my most exciting DSTs to own overall heading into the season. They got a bevy of stud IDP talent, right? Darius Leonard, Burns and the defensive end. It's insane to me, but they're just not where they need to be right now. And I have the Los Angeles Rams putting up 30-plus points, mainly looking like 35-10 in this one. So to me, this game is going to be one-sided right off the get, as I was saying. So give me Matthew Stafford. Give me both wide receivers in this one, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. I have Stafford for another 300-plus passing day in this one, another 3-touchdown day. You're not looking at anything from a carries perspective. I think he had 5 carries last week for -5 yards. So he averaged -1 yard a carry last week. We can laugh it off because he's so good. 300-plus yards, 321, as I'm saying here. But with Woods, I have him for double the targets he did in week 1. 8 targets, 5 or 6 receptions, 75 yards, and a touchdown. Same thing with Cooper Kupp. We look at last week, and Cooper Kupp saw 10 total targets. It's crazy to me, but you'd be a fool to not consider that a lot of folks said that's exactly what's going to happen. Cooper Kupp is that kind of receiver where he gets in that zone with whoever the quarterback is. Last year it was Golf, where we would see Golf, target Cooper Kupp 10 times in a half, like back-to-back plays of targets for Cooper Kupp here. So to me, I think it'll even out a little bit this week between Woods and Kupp. So I have both of them at 8 targets, both of them around 6 or 7 receptions, both of them over 75 yards, both of them with a touchdown. So to me, a stack of these 3 in DFS formats, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Robert Woods, very much, doable here. Matthew Stafford is $7,500 on FanDuel. Kupp is $6,200 on FanDuel, and he's $6,500 on DraftKings. So to me, it's all about the Los Angeles Rams in week 2.
I love it. That one should just be also a very fun game to watch, and I'm very excited to see how that one plays out. Let's go ahead and head on over to Tennessee. They are actually going to Seattle. So we're going to go to Tennessee via Seattle there. And you got the Titans and the Seahawks meeting up. 52.5 points is the over-under on this one. Seattle Seahawks are favored by 5.5. And this is one that I think that I think that you're going to see a little bit of a better showing for Tennessee, right? They didn't show up great last week against the Cardinals. Kyler Murray just picked apart that secondary, which again, like, we talked about that secondary is young for Tennessee, and they've really got some holes there. And I'm going to see that play out again this week. You've got a talented quarterback in Russell Wilson, who I think is going to put up over 300 passing yards when it's all said and done. I see probably 3 to 4 touchdowns for him as well. I see a very big day coming, and I see DK Metcalf making some big plays on this one. Tyler Lockett also making some big plays, and it's not going to surprise me when both of these wide receivers put up over 100 yards apiece on this thing. But I do see a bounce back coming on the Tennessee side of the ball as well. I see Derrick Henry doing better than about the 56 yards that he had last week. Also coupling that with the fact that I saw a lot of folks coming out in the socials kind of questioning whether Ryan Tannehill, what are you doing? Are you going to bench him, move on? No, this is the same guy that you drafted him to be. And when it's all said and done, he will most likely end up the season as a top 12 quarterback. I don't have any reservations saying that, even after a not showing in week 1, because you saw some really good things, right? You saw Ryan Tannehill still sneak out, score a rushing touchdown there, which that was one of the big upsides that he gave you from that, is that he's going to do that. And the fact that I think that you'll see AJ Brown and Julio Jones show their worth a little bit more so from a fantasy perspective. And I think you'll be able to see Tennessee establish a, kind of that play action pass. Derrick Henry establishing the run, getting that going. I probably see him around about 85 to 90 yards on the ground when it's all said and done. I don't see him getting over that 100-yard clip, but that's going to establish that run just enough that you're going to see A.J. Brown be able to go up and over the top and get behind the defense and make them pay on at least probably one big, long play if it doesn't go for a touchdown. So I see some very good things on this. There's a lot of fantasy intrigue, and I think this one's going to be another exciting game to watch. Give me the over, and I think Seattle is gonna cover on this one as well.
Well, I'm with you per usual here in this game. If I'm glad that Tyler Lockett owners got their first big week of the season, week 1. Now he's going to pull the Houdini, disappear, and DK Metcalf can run the show for what, Derek? 4 or 5 weeks, and we don't know when we'll get another big Tyler Lockett game. Probably week 7 or week 8. Mm-hmm. But if you've watched football, if anybody out there watching this, you obviously love football, you can kind of set your watch by this stuff. 1 week it's Tyler, then in the next 5 weeks it's DK. Russ Wilson cooks for the first 6-7 games of the season, and you can't keep Derrick Henry down this long. I see this as a prime kind of Derrick Henry game. I don't have Tennessee winning, but I do think this guy's going to go nuts. 150, 160 yards on the ground, because Seattle is 25th overall against opposing running backs. This Tennessee Titans team is so good when they get Derrick Henry running, and don't expect another dud from the king in here, Derrick Henry. One thing I do want to mention, I said it probably about a month before the season started. I made this wild claim, and so far so good. I said, why can't Gerald Everett score double-digit touchdowns this season? Well, 1 for 1, week 1 he scored, so let's keep that double-digit train rolling for Gerald Everett here. So give me Everett in DFS formats. Everett is only $5,000 on FanDuel, and he's only $3,600 on DraftKings, going against the 32nd ranked overall defense in the Tennessee Titans.
Absolutely. I love it. And I actually had Gerald Everett as my number 1 sleeper tight end doing my preseason rankings. So I'm in. Let's just have him go crazy and do that one. And I picked him up everywhere I can. Love his situation. Love that matchup. So yeah, I'm all in. Let's score some touchdowns.
Let's roll. And then after we score touchdowns, let's go right to Tampa Bay, Raymond James Stadium, the whole pirate ship swaying and lighting off, cannons and everything. I've always loved that. I've been to that stadium a few times for some college football bowl games. It's a fantastic stadium. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers host the Atlanta Falcons here. And this one, over under of 52 points here. And I think every bit of that over is just maxed out. I could see a total, I have the final about 38 to 28 here. So you're looking at what? 5. You're looking at almost 65 to 70 points in this one. Tampa Bay just puts the pedal to the metal in this one, puts up damn near 40 points here. So to me, it's all about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from a seasonal standpoint. From a DFS format, it's about the Atlanta Falcons. And let me explain. Tom Brady, Godwin, Mike Evans. And to me, those are the 3 stars of the show. Again, kind of like that whole MO with DK and Tyler Lockett. You can set your watch by the fact week 1 was all about Godwin. Week 2, it'll all be about Mike Evans here, and I have no issue saying that. That's just how this team rolls, and we know Tom Brady, to me, is the GOAT, greatest quarterback of all time, and you know this guy. How many times have we watched a Tom Brady game where they pop the graphic up in the 3rd quarter and the beginning of the 4th quarter where they show his chart of distributing the football, right? So everybody gets a taste for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend, but I firmly believe Mike Evans will show up and show out. So give me Mike Evans in seasonal formats, DFS formats. And then, as I said, in the Atlanta Falcons side of things, they're more of not a Hail Mary, but they're more about being contrarian from a DFS perspective. Because as we've said so far, there's a lot of high-powered, studly, offenses going today. A lot more, they're more expensively priced, but you can get the Atlanta Falcons, who I see, as I said, putting up 28 or 31 points here. You might be able to get them not on the cheap per se, but you're going to get them at low ownership. Matt Ryan, $6,700 on FanDuel. Calvin Ridley, very expensive, $7,700 on FanDuel. And then I love a guy like Russell Gage. I mentioned him last week in Bottom of the Barrel. He kind of crapped the bed for me, so I'm going to go back to that well. And one of these weeks, Derek, I'm going to be right. What better time to be right than in week 2? One thing I think we should keep an eye on is Kyle Pitts, right? They're going against the Tampa Bay's 20th overall against opposing tight ends. I don't think that lasts long. I think Tampa Bay is really going to shoot up the defensive ranks here soon. They're going to get it going. They're going to get it moving, and this will be one of the best defensive teams for the length of the season here. So everybody's on Kyle Pitts like he saw, what did he see last weekend, Derek? Double-digit targets, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look it up real quick because I have it here, so let me stall. He had 8 targets, only caught 4 of those passes, so he's 50%, 30 yards, and that was it. He didn't even break like 8 or 9 total points, seasonal fantasy points last week. So looking ahead to this week, I have Kyle Pitts for about the same amount of targets, about 5 or 6 receptions. It would be a sweet story to see him, catch his first ever professional football touchdown. And I think he does that in a very high scoring game. Aside from Kansas City, Baltimore Sunday night, to me, Atlanta at Tampa Bay will be the most exciting game of week 2.
Yeah, I think you're right. A couple of guys come up there that I know that some folks are going to have some questions about from a DFS play, especially on Tampa Bay, right? Like, what are you looking to do? You had Antonio Brown have a magnificent game in week 1. Same thing with Gronk having a magnificent game week 1. What are you looking to do with those guys from a DFS play?
Well, those guys here, it'd be wise to get a lineup with all of them in there. But I know in most cases, given the price and given the other players that you want in your lineup, that's not really, too consistent. So I always keep it simple. As I've said, this team has a track record of one week it's Godwin, then the next week it's Evans, and vice versa here. But one thing we can trust is Gronkowski's always going to be around. The only thing that freaks me out is O.J. Howard is now healthy, and O.J. he did nothing, 0.0. He wasn't even on the field much, in week 1 here. So to me, Gronk is in play to a certain extent. He's a little bit too rich for my blood on FanDuel, $5,800. I've made no secret about my propensity to kind of punt tight ends here. So to me, I would choose Evans and Antonio Brown of those 4, offensive weapons here. So Godwin, Evans, AB, and Gronk. I would settle for Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and head over to Los Angeles. I know you already talked about the Rams, so we're going to talk about the Chargers, and the Cowboys are going to visit the Chargers this week. You've got the over-under 52.5 points. The Los Angeles Chargers are favored at home by 2.5. So Vegas sees this being a close game, and I think that this one's going to come down to the wire again, right? Like, I think that's going to be a lot of the case with Dallas. Is it's going to ultimately be the tail of their season is going to be which team has the ball last in the game is ultimately going to dictate their overall record, because I think they're going to play in a lot of those close games. The defense, was kind of what we expected, maybe a little bit better. They're missing a major pass rusher, their best pass rusher on Dallas. So I expect Justin Herbert to have a little bit more time than he might otherwise have. One of my biggest question marks here is I really wasn't expecting to see Austin Eckler not used in the passing game as much as he wasn't in week 1, right? Like they brought Lombardi in as the offensive coordinator coming from that New Orleans system. And so really saw, Austin Eckler having almost an Alvin Kamara type of role this year. And that's really didn't play out in week 1. So that's one of the biggest questions I'm going to be watching this game for to look and see is that the way that this is going to be going forward for this offense, what we saw in week 1, or was week 1 kind of the fluke on this one, and we're going to see much more of a traditional Austin Eckler role, a little bit of an Alvin Kamara type of role for him. So one of the big questions, Mark, I'm looking to watch on this one. I do think Alvin Kamara has a massive, I'm sorry, I said Alvin Kamara. I mean Austin Eckler. It's okay. It's okay. I see Austin Eckler having a monstrous day on this one, being able to get out the backfield and go. We saw the bevy of Tampa Bay running backs do all right against this Dallas defense. And Austin Eckler, I think, is going to have a monster day. Keenan Allen, again, very heavily targeted here. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with Mike Williams. Is he going to be able to turn it loose? And, is this the breakout season that we've been waiting for with a guy as talented as Mike Williams? And I think we are going to get a better answer on that come Monday. But Dallas is where I've got a lot of my fantasy options on this one, right? Dallas gets a much better defense to run against than what they had last week, right? Like you looked at Tampa Bay, one of the best rush defenses in the league last year, and they looked very good in week 1. Zeke did some amazing pass blocking, which again opened Dak up to have a 400-yard plus game. I see, and that's where Dallas is going to have to stay in these things and win. So again, play Amari Cooper, play CeeDee Lamb. Those are no-brainers. I see both of them having very big days again with about 10 targets apiece on this one, especially with Michael Gallup not being in the mix anymore, which is a little too unfortunate. And I see Zeke having a much better bounce back day. Zeke, when I was looking at my rankings, I've got him sneaking up into the top 10 for this week. So I see him having a very big day. And overall, I think this is just going to be a great matchup to watch.
I'm with you. The theme for me in week 2 is, things, get back to normal. Things fall back in place here. Because week 1, there's a lot of wildness. There's a lot of, we don't know this from that. And it's a lot of craziness. So to me in this one, yeah, I'm with you. I look for Zeke to have, his patented 20 carries in this one, go over 100 yards, score on the ground. And Austin Eckler, massive bump in this one, double-digit carries again, maybe 14 to 15 carries, catch 5 or 6 passes. And, a touchdown on both ends, in the air, on the ground. So to me, this game is going to be fantastic. I love, in terms of the spread, I love the Chargers giving Dallas 3.5. I have the Chargers winning about 28-17 in this one. Obviously, that's not going to deter you from sitting Dak Prescott. That would be silly. 2 players I want to mention from a sneaky, actually 3 if I can have an extra moment here, Derek. 3 sneaky players from DFS formats is Cedric Wilson, right? Without Michael Gallup around, Cedric Wilson is, I have him highlighted in my notes. Cedric is $4,900 on FanDuel, $3,100 on DraftKings. Mike Williams, as you mentioned here, Mike Williams, $5,600 on FanDuel, $6,100 on DraftKings. And then nobody's going to see it coming unless you read bottom of the barrel. Larry Roundtree III, only $4,900 on FanDuel, $4,000 on DraftKings. Now, to me, Larry has established himself already as the RB2 behind Austin Eckler. I see a case in week 2 where he does exactly what he did in week 1, just with the addition of a touchdown. Another 8 carries, 30, 40 yards, about 4.5 yards a pop, and a reception or 2 for 10 or 15 yards. So you're not looking for show-stopping results from Cedric Wilson or Larry Roundtree, but very, very respectable from a contrarian kind of punt play in DFS formats.
No, I love that. And I think you're right. I think Larry Roundtree did supplant Justin Jackson as that number 2. And I think he'll get the goal line work going forward on that, right? Like he's more of a goal line built back than what Austin Eckler is. So it was a little surprising that you saw Austin Eckler get kind of that short yardage goal line, goal line work last week. So I think Larry Roundtree will have some good value, and I think you're right. I think he ended up putting 1 in the end zone. So I love it. You mentioned the bottom of the barrel. You mentioned your DFS plays. Let's spend some time there. What sage advice you got for some folks when it comes to that bottom of the barrel?
Well, I would say to continue the theme here, it's only week 2. I would still start slow, take it easy, find out what your method is. And if you're a first-time DFS player, don't get in over your head. You never gamble more than you can afford to lose. So take it easy, take it slow, pay attention to the Vegas, the over-unders, the point spreads, and look at DVP matchups, defensive player versus the offense here. And for that reason, that's why I love guys like Kirk Cousins this weekend, Kenny Gainwell, Naeem Hines, things along those lines, even Chase Claypool. Brandon Ayuk, I think, bounces back. As I told you, the theme here is, week 1 was kind of wild. It was an outlier, and we're starting to get back to means and averages in week 2. So I love all those guys that really kind of, they flopped for us in week 1, and you don't want to use that. You don't want to take that personally. This is DFS. You're never married to a team. You can make new teams week to week, day to day here. So I love the idea of making a lineup of all those guys who kind of, goose egged for us in week 1. Because again, recency bias is massive in seasonal formats, but it's also huge in DFS circles. So again, I could see a case where Zeke Elliott, his ownership is lower than normal because of what he did last week. Will be a stud this week. Austin Eckler, same thing, didn't catch any passes. I know that kind of behavior turns people off, especially in DraftKings where it's a full point PPR. So you start Austin Eckler under the guise of, well, he's going to catch 5 or 6 passes, so he has a safe floor. I can count on, minimum 10 points from Eckler before the ball is even snapped based on his receptions. Look for him to get back going. And again, one guy I want to mention, actually 2 here, it's what are we going to do in San Francisco with these running backs? Trey Sermon was a healthy and active last week. Elijah Mitchell was a waiver wire darling. We saw folks just spend their entire fab budget on Eli moving forward here. I would say it's not a good move, but it's not a bad move. Spending all your fab after 1 week kind of puts you behind the 8 ball. You got nothing left to continue the season with here. And so I just want to say, hold your horses. We know what goes on in San Francisco. We know the running back, by committee things that follow the Shanahan last name. So would I be shocked to see Trey Sermon lead the backfield in carries? Absolutely not. Could it be Elijah Mitchell? Absolutely not. We don't know how it's going to be. So tread lightly. Week 1 was wild, but I'm very much looking forward to week 2. So thanks for having me here, Derek.
Oh, I'll always love having you on. Always love the advice you give. It is amazing. Guys, I think that's going to wrap that up unless you've got some other tips or tricks for the viewers out there.
Absolutely not. If anybody has any questions, concerns, or comments on anything related, life advice, DFS advice, you can always find me on Twitter at Detroit Beastie.
Love it. And you can find me and the rest of the Good Old Boys crew at Good Old Boys FF. We look forward to being back with you live for week 3, and make sure that you guys get all your questions ready to go. We love seeing those in the question boxes there. So guys, that's going to wrap up, and we will see you all next week. Good luck and have a great day.